how would you describe the community of English learners and teachers on YouTube right now?
That's a very interesting question. I think it depends. I think like talking about YouTube or other platforms, it was like this in the past too. And right now it's the same thing. Like honestly, I feel like nothing is really changing.
Okay.
What I mean is, right now we see some people who are very connected, right? For example, us, right? We're having these like calls, we chat sometimes and we support each other. However, there are people who just spread hate and negativity. And it was like this in the past too. There are also like teachers online who always say that like, these are my qualifications. Like, look at this. I passed this exam, that exam. And like, that's why you should only listen to me. Like, and they try to make other people feel bad because they don't have those qualifications. Yeah, like I once came across this like person on Instagram who was like saying, yeah, you should always ask your teacher like what are their, exams that they took to prove that they're a good teacher. I'm like, this is not how it works. I mean, like, for example, the teachers that like taught me or are teaching me Spanish right now, they don't have any qualifications. They're just great people and they love the language and they love speaking. But again, I would say it's very personal. For me, it's not important. For some people, it's very important to only be learning from a person who is like a certified professional.
Yeah.
So yeah.
But so it's good to have those things, but you shouldn't shame other people for not having them.
That's the point. Exactly. Yeah. The point is if you have them, great. I mean, I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but yeah, when people start shaming other people for not having them.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense anyways, because like you said, some people value that and some people don't. And I think generally speaking in the world, the value of those things is going down. Because people understand that they have access to things that they need and that they can easily check things. And so do you think that the community of English teachers on YouTube in general is positive, negative? What has been your experience with YouTube as a teacher creator?
As far as them interacting with me as individuals, like,
yeah, overall on the platform. I mean, even other channels interacting with you, other people, I mean, me getting in touch with you, stuff like that.
I've had a very positive experience. Every English teacher I've interacted with, whether it be via interview or via email, they're very sweet. The word that comes to my mind is sweet. And I think it's reflective of our job. Like we literally are giving constantly, giving to help somebody else speak our language, trying to help them understand. And that takes a special person to do that. Someone that actually really cares about someone else's well-being. So the interactions I've had with English teachers, yes, everyone has a different personality, but across the board, whether someone's an introvert or an extrovert or whatever their personality might be, at the heart, everyone has been extremely sweet and kind, extremely sweet and kind. The guy I met, Bob the Canadian, I've met, she's British. Not Emily. Anyways, Rachel, I've interacted with her via email and other people as well. Everyone's been extremely kind. So yeah, I've had a very positive experience. Yeah.
That's great to hear. So coming back to the teacher community, I saw on your website that you have a teacher's pledge. So like, how does that kind of guide you on your day-to-day when you're doing your work? I see this as like your philosophy or your...
It is. I have it off to the side. I don't know if anyone I'd happy to read it, but it's on my website. I have a teacher's pledge and I have a learner's pledge. And actually it's one of the things I have available on my new store just for $1 because you can't charge, you have to put a price on it. So anyways, there's a very nicely formatted version of the pledge, and then there's my reading of it. So for the teacher's pledge, first and foremost, it's that I am a learner too. And I always try to remember that I never have all the answers, and it's okay to admit when I don't, and I need to pursue the answers when I don't have them. So I feel that readiness to learn is at the core of who I am and what I do. I love making videos because, as you know, the more you teach a topic, the better you master it. And each time you think, oh, I know the present perfect, then you start teaching it. And usually, again, that 5th time, 50th time, whatever time it is, teaching the present perfect, like, you master another subtlety. You're like, oh, I didn't think about that. Or the questions that people give, I'm like, that's a really good question. Someone did it the other day. I already have lessons on there is, there are, but the way they ask the question, I'm like, oh, I need to address that little element. And so I get excited thinking that, okay, my first explanation was pretty good, but it didn't address that point. So I never stopped learning. I never stopped challenging myself as a teacher. And, but I also know as a learner, it's okay to make those mistakes. That's a really hard one for me, because if I see a mistake in a video or, and I'm not talking like a typo, it's just like an explanation, like, ooh, that might not have been the best way to say it. I get this feeling inside of me of anxiousness, dread, anxiety, dread. I want to fix it. That's part of what guides me too, is that I'm not happy if I know that I can improve, or if there's something I need to correct. So I'm ready to acknowledge my mistakes, learn from them, grow from them, especially when it comes to grammar.
So you're talking about reacting to your own video material.
Oh, yes. I almost don't want to sometimes watch my old videos because, I'm a recovering, they call it a recovering perfectionist. I've let go of perfectionism. It's just not achievable. And if you want to publish videos also, especially there was a time where I was publishing every week, and that's really hard to keep up with. You just got to let it go sometimes and figure that's the best I can do right now, and there it goes.
So how would you feel if someone watched one of your old videos, found some kind of mistake, or something that you misstated a little bit, and they made a video correct?
It's fine. I think it's how they approach it and how they do it. I also think being out there and, once you put a video out there on any topic, you're pretty much putting yourself in a position of not necessarily expert, but some position of authority. So you have to be prepared to be challenged. And there are people who say, but my teacher said this, but this book says that. And I get those comments. Luckily, like 9 times out of 10 or even more, I have an answer. I have a response to defend what I've taught. So that's another thing is like, make your videos with quality, do your research. That's also a reason why grammar videos usually take the most effort, because I really make sure I got everything in place before, because I want to deliver accurate information. And I know that I have to stand behind my work. So commit yourself to quality information, do your research. But it's fine. One time, it's usually that it wasn't as clear as it could have been. And so then I have a follow-up video a few years later. Or, if there's like a mistake, there's once where I caught myself, I didn't explain indirect objects clearly. I was off, and I admitted it. First I blogged about it because I use my blog as an opportunity for reflection, which I highly encourage teachers to do. Reflect, write about what's going on every week, whether you're blogging openly or just for yourself. It's really good to reflect on your teaching practice. But my first reaction was emotional, like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I did this. How can I forgive myself, or like, like all these years I didn't have the proper understanding of indirect objects. Oh my gosh, how shameful. But then I thought, okay, what can we learn? How do we fix it? Do I need to fix it? How do I adjust and move on from here? So how does the pledge guide me? It guides me to be my best. It guides me to learn, accept my mistakes and learn from them. And also to support colleagues in ways that I can, knowing that they support me in turn. That's what I want my teaching practice to be. Yeah.
So how would you describe the English teaching as a foreign language kind of community on YouTube? Because you've put out videos, you've got some feedback from the platform, and you've seen what other people are doing. Do you think this is a positive thing that's going on, or what do you think?
Definitely. But it is quite difficult because there's lots of people from all over the world, and they all speak different languages and things. My experience has been mostly positive. I know that other people have had some issues, but I think that's definitely part of being on social media. One of the ugly side of social media is that there is you know, a lot of abuse and people online. It does bring out the worst in people in a way when they can hide behind their keyboard. However, I personally, especially on YouTube, it's been mostly positive. On Instagram, I mean, I don't really do Instagram very much, but when I did, I got a lot more negative stuff there than I do on YouTube.
They didn't like the in crumpets, or what did you post there?
No, I was just doing similar thing. I was just doing sort of shorter versions of you know, videos on phonetic sounds, but yeah, just I guess generally the tone of the comments is you know, is very different. I think on YouTube maybe people are looking to be educated. I mean, maybe back then it was more so that YouTube was more of an it was not an education platform, but but people were using it more for education, whereas Instagram was far more to be entertained. But no, on the whole, I think it's very positive. Yeah. It's difficult to sort of build a community though, because like I said, everyone is spread all over the world. But I think I can definitely do a lot better at that. I do have a Discord as well, and I have a few people in there, but I've not been very good myself. So that's something else I need to improve at, and you know, staying in touch with those people.
Mm-hmm. So do you think it's healthy to have competition in this space, teaching English on YouTube?
Yes, definitely. I mean, and because I feel like with most people, it's we're all trying to help each other. It doesn't feel like competition. And it's not like if somebody watches my video, they can't watch your video as well. You know, all our videos are out there for free, you know, so people can watch both. People can subscribe to both our channels, and they should.
Subscribe.
You know, yeah, subscribe.
How would you describe, you know, the teaching English as a foreign language community on YouTube as a whole? Like, is it a positive place to be making this content, or, you know, how do you feel about that?
Is it a positive place to make? Yeah, I think YouTube for me has been a positive experience. I mean, I've tried on other platforms, Facebook, for example. You know, if you want to do anything on Facebook, if you want to produce content on Facebook, you have to pay Mark Zuckerberg. You know, you're making the content, you have to pay him. On YouTube, I've made money on YouTube. You know, YouTube, TikTok, I put videos on TikTok. You can get thousands of views on TikTok. You're not going to earn any money, and the videos are shorter. So I think, yeah, as a platform, YouTube is number one for this type of teaching English. Mm-hmm. But is your question about the quality of the English?
Guess the community of teachers, the community of content creators, the people who are doing this.
Do you personally feel part of a community of teachers?
I think that, you know, what drew me to you is that you have a channel, an established channel, and that you have content there in a certain niche, right, on a certain topic. And so I think that maybe you don't consider yourself part of that community, but you take a lot of the same behaviors that the other people take as far as publishing and, you know, trying to grow, like similar goals that people are pursuing in the same area. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So, I mean, actually, you're the first other YouTube teacher that I've ever met. So that's cool. What I meant. I like being...
High five.
Yeah. I don't, like I said to you before, I don't really look at other teachers too much because At the beginning, I did maybe because I wanted to see, maybe for ideas sometimes, but also at the beginning, there were some other particular channels, which there were a few that started more or less the same time as mine. And it was like, it became a little bit competitive maybe in my head, where I was, oh, great, I've got more views than that one. And then this one is getting more views than me. And hey, why has that guy got 1 million views? And I've got 300 views or whatever. I don't know. And it wasn't a, well, how can I put it? It's not really positive when you start thinking like that, comparing yourself to other people. True. Because there are always channels that are more successful, and there are many channels that are completely unsuccessful. So, I mean, my channel, I think, is like in the middle. You know, I'd like to have more success. But if you're talking about the quality of teaching on YouTube, I think, you know, there's good and there's bad and there's everything on there. There are some particular, I mean, I don't want to mention any names or anything, but there are some people who are just in it to make money. I mean, let's be honest, everybody who's on YouTube probably is on there to make money. But at the same time, in my case, I want to make money. I don't make that much money directly out of YouTube, but it's a platform to promote, you know, I have like group classes in Zoom, I have private classes, I sell English courses. So YouTube, I mean, I need to eat, basically. I need to earn money.
But there's
YouTube,
some channels that take that too far. Is that what you're saying? Because there's some kind of line between education and business, right?
Yeah. I mean, I'm also like what I do, and I'm happy to provide, because like I said, I lived in Latin America for a long time. I spent that time in Peru, which was very hard for me economically. So I know there are many, many people in Latin America who don't have the money to pay for English classes. So I'm happy. I feel good that I'm doing something positive, and that I'm helping people to learn English, that I'm teaching people English. If somebody can't afford to pay for English classes, then my YouTube channel is perfect for them. But at the same time, like I said, I need to eat. So I need to earn money. So I need to make money off YouTube, which isn't a lot, sell courses, sell classes. That supports me. But there are other people who are just in it for to make money. And it's a scam. They are telling people things that are not true.
Like what?
I don't want to. I mean, you could say something like, "Hey, I've just developed a fantastic new way to teach English. I can teach you English in 10 days using my scientifically developed program." And obviously, it's not true. But unfortunately, there's a lot of people who believe it because they want to believe it. I mean, I would say to anyone, be very wary of anybody who is going to tell you that they have a scientifically proven way that you can learn English 10 times quicker than anybody else or something like that, because it's not true. I mean, the language this is a multi-million, maybe a multi-billion-dollar industry. Do you think that if somebody had developed a revolutionary new scientific methodology to teach languages, that everybody would be using that very quickly? So, yeah, but there are good and there are bad. So there's some very, very good teachers on YouTube. You've got to look at it from the point of view. I mean, if I wanted to learn Chinese, for example, would I use YouTube? That is the question. What do you think? I mean, if you wanted to learn another language, would you use YouTube?
So yeah, I would select a channel that's in English, teaching the foreign language, so that it's teaching me in my first language. And
so you're a believer in that way of teaching and using the native language as a...
I think as a learner, that's the first place I would go. So for you, how would you describe like the YouTube English teaching space overall? Because in my experience, there's a lot of good stuff, but there's a decent amount of negativity too. And
absolutely. And before I answer that question, let me tell you, I'm not as active on YouTube as I used to be. And when I was really active on YouTube, it was earlier, where I think there was less of that. There was still some of it, but there was less of it. So if I started to get active again, and I may or may not on YouTube, I mean, I use it to get more work for shows. It really helps with that. But as far as like really putting effort into it as a job, which you have to do if you really want to get a return on your investment, like I don't really do that. So maybe that's also why I don't get as many negative comments as I might. But it's an interesting question you ask, because I'm reading this book. I literally have it next to me. This was not a planned endorsement.
Nice.
Jennifer ESL, or English for Jennifer. She's an old friend of mine. She actually wrote 3 pages in here about me, which is so amazing. She's like, "Oh, I mentioned you in my book," and I was like, then I read it. I'm like, "Oh my God."
That's awesome. I don't know if you're aware, but she was actually a guest on this podcast.
I am aware.
Yeah. Like she was a judge in the last English battle that we had. And
I didn't know that.
I'll have to show you that one later. Yeah.
Okay, very cool. I knew she was on. And it's funny because she was just here visiting in Paris and came over. So she was actually here with her kids. And anyway, so you know what I'm about to say, because she writes a lot about that in this book. So I'm sure I didn't see what you guys did. Has that been published, or hasn't it been published yet?
Yeah.
Okay, I don't know why I missed it. I just knew she was on it.
I'll send it over after.
Yeah. Okay. I've been busy, so I haven't noticed it. But yeah, she also, she's been in it since 2007. So she also mentions that early on people were kinder and blah, blah, blah. So I think YouTube, I mean, first of all, if you're a teacher who's, are you talking about sort of getting started, or are you talking about people that are already kind of successful? Maybe I guess, ask before I answer.
Yeah, I guess the people who are getting started are going to kind of be the people who we're trying to give advice to right now, right? Because
perfect.
We've done that, we've been there, but we see what's happening with the people at our level, and we can say, like, there's some good, some bad, right?
Yeah, but getting started, I mean, there's, to me, the best formula, and I've seen it so many times. And when I'm in your spot and I'm interviewing people, because I've done that a lot, and they're telling me how they build up on Instagram or YouTube, it's almost always they start. It's kind of like what I did too. Before social media, you start with your own students, like they're your following. If you don't have students, that's different. But I also think, get some, teach a class, do, try stuff out that then you can, use social media as a way to connect with those students outside of class. So I did it with CDs, right? You do it, and that your Instagram or your YouTube, you're not worrying about like blowing it up, and, you can kind of keep it focused on just a place, where you're experimenting and your students are giving you all this love and advice and that kind of thing. And then I think you get the confidence, to kind of make it more open. And, then, what's healthy and unhealthy about social media is a very tricky one these days, I think. And it also depends on your character. But I think the big difference today is that I think, as I said earlier, YouTube, if we're talking about YouTube specifically, and that was your question, it really is like a job. I mean, I guess all of these platforms are now. Like if you think, okay, I want to go in there and I want to become really successful, I want to make money from advertising, all that stuff, you really have to devote a lot of time and be smart and know things like what Chris Americos can teach you about marketing and so forth. It's not just going to be how good the content is, which is back to if you're like me, and you just want to make sure the content gets better and better and better, then I think, doing it in parallel with teaching in real life is a great way. And if you get good enough at it, like you and a lot of others, you can just go just into online, but people who go right into online, I think without that kind of experience, it's going to be tough.
Yeah. That's an interesting point to bring up, because I guess that's where some criticism does come up for some creators, that some people call them out, say, what are your credentials? What are your qualifications? Where are your certificates? And then they, especially if you're a non-native teacher, then there's this added level of judgment that people throw at you, which is like, why are you teaching the language if you don't know it? And it comes across, you know what I mean? But you've probably seen
All the time. I mean, I train, I'm a sort of, one of my specialties is in my years of experience training non-native speakers to be English teachers. So to me, this is disgraceful and it's outrageous because, I mean, this would be another discussion and we don't have to go down that road necessarily, but there's so many reasons why non-native teachers become better teachers than a lot of native speaking teachers. So there's that. But yeah, I mean, I think, but the whole thing about credentials and certificates, I mean, if your stuff there are people out there, right, who don't have those credentials and certificates and their stuff is garbage. Okay, so maybe then you start to think, it's not that who cares about a certificate as much as maybe you didn't do anything to get this, you don't have the experience. Certificate or no certificate, you've got to have experience, right? Mm-hmm. So if somebody's calling you out because your content is bad, and even worse, you're kind of duping people into paying for things, that's not cool, Yeah. And that could be native speaker or non-native speaker. So, but I'm guessing what you're saying is people throwing accusations out when, the content, the rapport with the students, everything is so good. Who cares? I mean, especially online, if people are like, who's to say who's the best online teacher? It's the teacher you connect with. Jennifer talks a lot about that in her book. Like there are different styles, there are different approaches, and if you're making connections, students are, because they're messaging you. Oh my God, I did so much better on my test. Oh, I feel so much more motivated to do English. At that point, who cares about credentials? But I don't think that it's as easy if you just say, oh, so I can just get in and do this. I mean, I think without the experience, that's not going to happen to you in most cases.